It's Wednesday, July the 8th. Lake level right now is about 921 and a quarter. It's coming up like crazy. It come up 3 foot since yesterday. And it's probably going to continue to come up, with all the rain and flooding. We've got a bunch of water coming in, but, for the most part, and it's raining tonight, it's supposed to rain all night tonight, most of the day tomorrow. But for the most part, the lake is in good shape. You just got to be a little careful. Yeah, in the upper river arms, there's a lot of logs and debris, coming in. But when you get out of the river arms, most of the lake is in really good shape. But as the water comes up, it will pick up some things that have been wedged up on the bank and start floating. So, just drive cautiously and keep an eye out for floaters. But as far as the watercolor, for the most part, once you get ahead of the mud, if you're way up in the rivers, come down to where the water turns into a pretty green color, it's all fishable, and the fishing has been awesome the last 4 or 5 days. Water temperature is still right about 82 degrees, just a ton of current going through the lake. It was a couple days last week that I really struggled, trying to fish what was going on. Where it was July, I was trying to fish out there deeper, trying to catch them suspended fish. A lot of times you hear us talking about fishing the conditions. And for a day or two, I really wasn't fishing the conditions. I was fishing what normally happens this time of year. But that one day I went about 3 hours without a bite, and I was headed up the river, up the James River, because I caught some jig fish up there. So I was really in scramble mode, trying to get my clients some fish, and I came by a good friend of mine that's another guide, Rick LaPointe, and he waved me over and pointed down, and he said, "They're stacked up in here, they're biting like crazy." So we pulled up in there with him, and he told us what he was doing, and we just loaded up on fish, and then I was able to learn from that as to how the fish were positioning themselves. So the next several days, I did the same thing in different areas of the lake, and it's just really been a ball, But what we've been doing is fishing on these areas, or concentrating on the areas where the current's coming past points and bluff ends. Seems like you got to be in the stained water. So it seems like from Joe Bald up into the Whites working real good, and Joe Bald up into the James. I haven't tried it up in Long Creek, but it should be working as well. And these fish there'll be a lot of shad, big gizzard shad and threadfin, and they're getting grouped up where this current's coming across these points. If you've got deep water close by, that's good, but most of the fish have been 8 to 10 feet deep. No deeper. You don't have to fish any deeper than maybe 15 to 20. The further down lake you get, you might have to get out in that 20, 22 feet. But then, once you find them, there's really big groups of them. You'll catch 5 or 6, 12, 13-inch Kentuckys, then all of a sudden you'll catch a 4-pound largemouth. The smallmouth have been mixed in with them. You've been able to set in one spot and catch, up to 30 fish in one spot. It's crazy how grouped up they've been. Like I say, you might have to fish several spots, but one of the keys is look for the bait on your electronics and try to visualize the way the current is coming. If there's a point that's sticking out and you kind of visualize the current be running this way, there'll usually be a current break there, and then fish are just stacking up right on them little ridges. And what we've been catching them on, I think you can catch them on a bunch of different things, but mainly I've been catching them on a jig, shaky headworm, and a crankbait, and a drop shot. What's crazy is you can catch these drop shot fish, you can set right on top of them and catch them 12, 15, 18 foot deep, just vertical fishing right above them. We've caught some just dropping a jig straight down. Now I've been throwing a 1/2 ounce and a 5/8 ounce jig, and it seems like the crawdad's got a lot of orange in them. So I'm trying to have either a little orange in my jig, or I'm taking some orange dipping dye, excuse me, and putting on my trailers. Now this jig here has got a green pumpkin with orange. This one here is a pig sticker. It's a XXX, and I've got a Strike King craw on it, like a rage craw. and it's working real good, but a lot of times I will color the end orange. This is a Zoom Ultra Vibe Speed Crop working real well. Now the other bait that's working well too is we're taking a 1/2 ounce and 5/8 ounce shaky head, big football shaky head, and putting a Magnum finesse worm or a Magnum, here's one here with a Magnum Zoom trick worm. I'm not getting as many fish on the worms, but the fish have been bigger. Now, something I need to show you on this reel here. Luz's new reels, this is a pretty awesome deal. A lot of times how you don't know what size, you have a hard time keeping what size line you have on your rod and reel. A lot of times I'll take a magic marker and write it on there. I've seen some rod companies putting a little, like a dial on the back of the rod. But what they've come out with is really slick, because like a lot of us, we may change reels from rod to rod. But right here on the reel, it's got a little dial. And you can just turn that indicator where if you've got fluorocarbon or mono or braid, put it on the size line that you have on that particular reel, and it's a done deal. You change line size, you can just take your fingernail or a screwdriver, turn that to whatever size line you put on. And like I say, it's got it marked for fluorocarbon, mono, and braid. Really slick setup. And it's available on their Team Luz Pro and their Tournament Pro right now, but it's going to be available on 5 or 6 other models, like the BB1 Pro, the BB2 Pro, and also the Team Luz Lite. But if you're looking at a new reel, this is really a slick deal, because if you're like me, you got so much stuff, half the time I forget what size line I've got on what rod. Another way I'm catching them fish is I'm catching them on a crankbait. And they seem to be biting the crankbait a little better early, but I'm throwing a 5XT and a 6XT. Now I don't really see too much changing. The water's definitely going to come up, and some of the water's going to get real dirty. My suggestion would be, if you've caught them one day and all of a sudden, because there's so much water moving, it muds up on you, just move down lake and stay ahead of the mud. Still stay in the stained water, but if you get in any of that chocolate stuff, move ahead of it. But with the water level coming up, the only thing that may be a little bit of an issue is right now a lot of the stuff I'm fishing is pretty clean. But if the water keeps coming up, what I mean by clean is just rock structure there. As the lake comes up, if the fish come up with it, to be in that 8, 10 to 12 feet, there have to be a lot of bushes and trees. So that's the only thing, a person might have to tend with. But I'm sure they'll bite a Texas rig worm, just a lot of different baits that they're biting. But we've been having a hard time not throwing anything but the jig. The jig is by far catching the numbers of fish. The bigger worms are catching the bigger ones, as well as the crankbaits, but not as many bites on them. And again, I'd like to thank Rick LaPointe for bailing me out that day on that trip and helping me out. Most of the guides, we all stay in touch with each other, because we don't want to see anybody have a bad day. We're all competitive. We want to be better than the next guy, but we also want all our clients to have a good trip. We don't want somebody to go home with a sour taste from a guide trip, because then none of us will get a chance of taking them clients again. But for the most part, everybody shares information and helps everybody out. So it's kind of one of them deals that what goes around comes around. So till next week, good luck, good fishing.